What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of the Third Intermission Podcast. This is your boy Dave signing on this blustery Sunday evening. Of course, here in Ontario, there's snow on the ground and it is looking pretty ugly right now. Winter has finally come at last, and I'm all types of sad about it, but it is what it is at this point. You can follow us at the socials at Toronto Third on Twitter, Instagram, and on Blue Sky. And you can subscribe and listen to us wherever you get your podcast from. That is Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and Podbean. We got a good roster tonight. Of course, let's start off with the queen of black hockey herself, aka the most gorgeous woman in hockey right now, Miss Marsha Joseph, coming to you live from Toronto. Marsha, what is going on?
There's no snow here. It's rain. The people were scared for nothing.
Lucky you.
As is normal in Toronto. But this is true. I want it, but I don't want it. Because ask me if I have my winters on yet. No. But thankfully, I have all seasons. Otherwise, Toronto is being Toronto, hockey is being hockey. It's a great time of the festivities of the year. Sometimes, maybe not always. I don't know. Stress.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're all right. We also got the right hand of the king himself, aka the Fedora Man, aka Mr. Steal Your Girl, coming to you live from Edmonton, Alberta. Avery McDougall. Avery, what's up?
Not much, just getting through this cold weather as I'm currently also watching the Buffalo Bills game. I don't know if Bills fans out there in minus 100 shirtless. Nah, man, not for me. Nah. I would never sit outside in a cold weather football game freezing like that. Nah, Bills fans are different as I watch that game through tape right now.
You know the phrase "white people shit," and you want to say it out in public, but you can't because like you have fear of offending the wrong group of white people, and then next thing you know, they pop off. This is one of those situations where like this is definitively white people shit.
This is when you find a fellow black person from across the stands. You look dead in each other's eyes. You look down at your skin, and then you look back at each other's eyes, and the conversation's done.
Exactly. You give them like a simple head nod. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
You can't even
You
do
with
it on
your
a plane.
sweater,
It's like,
with
yo,
your
bunch
winter
of white
jacket.
bunch of white people will look at it and be like, oh my God, those black guys are trying to save us. It's like, no, bitch, no, we're not. We're just
We're just cold.
All right. Anyways, we got the Hood General himself, aka Coach Troy. Coach Troy, what's going on?
Not too much, not too much. Just chilling on this Sunday evening, literally and figuratively, just like everybody else in Toronto. Yeah, I had one of those things called a day off. I did my best to enjoy it. I told them, don't call me, so I'm going to block your number for 24 hours, and so far it's been good.
Excellent. And then finally, we got the General himself, Jason. Jason, it's nice to have you back on the pod. Jason, what's going on?
Yo, just here, man. It's fucking cold, man. Shit, bro. Fuck.
Listen,
I don't. Yo,
all
it's
of y'all
cold,
need to
bro.
stop complaining about the fact that it's cold. Y'all,
It's
it's
cold.
rain, okay? At least you
Bam.
have rain, okay? Avery and I have to deal with freezing temperatures. Like, I got snow out in the K-Dubs, and Avery's out here dealing with like basically minus 50. You're like basically dealing with like somebody's ex's parents at this point. And it's like, yo, they're cold, they're frosty, they're miserable. It's basically like Alberta weather right now.
Fam, I gotta.
all the
Oh,
time.
sorry. Go ahead, Marsha.
No, you're
Go.
good. You're good. I was just gonna say, I'll complain for anything. So you can't fault me. When it's hot, I'll complain. In this weather, I'll complain. When it's minus 20, I'll complain. So at least I'm
Marsha's just
consistent.
complaining. Marsha's just complaining.
Isn't it Toronto pastime to complain about everything though?
I don't
No,
know.
man, it's
I don't
cold,
know.
fam. Yo, when you have to pull out the long johns, yo, yeah, it's cold, bro. Now I
Yo,
have to
how do you
like
think
double up
I
the
feel? Okay,
socks.
yo, let me tell you something. I'm just outside the GTA and there's bare snow in this bitch. Okay, trust me. When I tell you it's fucking cold, it's fucking cold. You don't know the meaning of the word cold. Consider you have building upon building upon building to deal with.
Hey, wind tunnels.
Damn, it's cold, man. It's cold.
Sandy beaches, y'all. We live in the land of hockey.
Listen,
Hockey's
I have to
cold.
deal with wind chill. Me not have no wind tunnel. I have blizzard. And it not Dairy Queen. It just straight blizzard.
Yo, this guy.
Oh,
Yo,
gosh.
I'm pretty sure Avery has a dead off much worse. Because it's like, yo, he has snow, he has frigid temperatures, and he has blizzards left, right, and center. Like, yo, like Alberta weather is not something you can fuck around with, man. Because it's like you don't even have the mountains to protect you, man. Y'all have wheat fields and oil fields.
Yeah, fam. No, I don't want no parts of Alberta in the wintertime, fam. No,
Trust
thank
me.
you. You can't send me over there in the wintertime. Avery, salute you, brother, because you've been putting up with that cold for a long time. Me, you cannot. No way, Jose. I'll
Hey,
just stay here.
Hey, I don't enjoy it either. I'm not a fan. People always say, oh, minus 30 is better than plus 30. You can always layer up. What? I will take a plus 30 day over minus 30 any day of the week. I do not enjoy this cold. People who say that are wild.
Of course.
Yeah, because this cold is not nice, bro. Like, I just want summertime back again. I'd rather complain about it's too hot than it's too cold. I don't like the cold, man. I don't. I've been here all my life. I don't
Y'all are
like.
really out here in this bitch. But I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is at this point.
Bam, it's cold, bro. It's cold.
All right. Speaking of cold, we do need to talk about hockey in this episode. So like, let's get to it one time. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to just dive into Leafs and Panthers, of course. Nice big dog fight for top. Well, no pun intended, but top dog in the Atlantic Division. The P-Dub kicked off this past weekend, including a very lively home opener in Toronto at Coca-Cola Coliseum with the Scepters. The Four Nations face-off will have their rosters officially set as of later this week. And then, of course, we're going to also talk about the fact that, say, the IIHF is on some bullshit when it comes to Canadian players, but it is what it is at this point.
Hold on, Dave. 1 sec before I stop you. Four Nations, not an IIHF tournament.
That makes it even worse. Yeah,
I think it's like some independent showcase between Four Nations.
It's only NHL sanctioned. It's NHL sanctioned only.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
Again, it is what it is. All right, let's get this on. All right, let's get this going. First things first, Leaf Dem, and of course the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, are currently duking it out for top spot in the Atlantic. Nick Robertson, of course, stepping up hugely on Hockey Night in Canada back on Saturday night when they defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning 5-3. Wasn't sure if any of you guys were able to catch that game, as your boy was clearly watching Survivor Series. So, Avery, I'm actually going to ask you, were you able to catch any of that at all? And what were your thoughts on it?
I did get a chance to see it, and yeah, I saw Nick Robertson step up with a goal. He's someone who we know was in a slump for a while, was looking for a second goal of the year. It felt like 84 years since Nick Robertson scored. He got one against Tampa, and you could see just the relief on his face when he was able to get on the board. And we all know how Nick Robertson's been a lightning rod for discussion among anybody in Toronto, among Leafs Nation. So we'll see if he can get things going again after that goal against Lightning.
Troy, were you able to see any of that game at all, or just nah?
I saw probably maybe like the last 8 minutes of the third. From what I remember, or at least from what I saw, it seemed to be like a pretty solidly contested game. So I remember at one point I was checking the score from work. I'm like, oh, 4-0, 4-1. All right, it's in the bag. By the time I get home, I get upstairs, I look at the score, and I'm like, oh, this game might be done now. I look at the score, it's 4-3, and I'm just turning on the TV, and it's like, what the hell's going on here? But, yeah, at least we got the W. Also was like defensive brain cramps that allowed these goals, the Tampa goals, to make it so close at the end. But I mean, W is a W. You take your wins how you can get them, right?
Of course. And you know what? Like it's very essential. Like even though it's super super early right now, it's still very essential for the Leafs to try and hold serve in the Atlantic because obviously you want to be able to get in with say very decent positioning, especially when it comes to April. Um, Obviously you don't win the Stanley Cup in like say the early months of the season, like October, November, December, but it is very vital and it is very critical that the Leafs start off strong and finish strong. That said, of course, looking at the standings right now, the Leafs did end up losing to Florida earlier in the week, and it did really give a little bit of cause for concern for Leafs Nation when, of course, we ended up putting up a goose egg against Florida the other night. Leafs currently right now are sitting at 30 points. At the time of this recording, the Panthers are currently sitting at 31. And ideally speaking, like, is this going to be your battle for top two going forward for the rest of the season? And Marsha, I'm gonna ask you to start off with this question.
I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Um, Only because they seem to be the two that are super consistent so far. Yes, we see our ups and downs with both. But they seem to maintain power and structure and they know what they want, even though they don't always execute it 100% of the time. Um, and it'll be an interesting rivalry to continue on for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, we'll see because this after Thanksgiving time seems to be where the shakeup happens. So the next, let's say, month will probably determine if this is actually the matchup or not.
Avery, Troy, thoughts? Sorry, and Jason?
Oh, with like the Leafs and stuff right now. Yeah,
Yeah, currently speaking, because it's like Marsha did state, like it is potentially looking like your definitive 1-2 battle for top spot in the Atlantic, and obviously I do want to get your thoughts on that really quickly.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. It looks like they're gonna battle it out, but the Leafs still need like a third line center. Even though Fraser Minton stepped in and he's playing good hockey and Grabenkin is in there. And yeah, Robertson scored, but he's still not out of the water yet. Robertson, to me, like I thought he was actually gonna excel like this season based off of the way he played in preseason. But like a lot of the people that I'm talking to like are not happy, like not with his productivity, but the fact that he doesn't really have like nothing really to show for it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because he's getting like time on the ice. He's getting a lot of ice time and he's been snake bitten a little bit as far as goal scoring. And yeah, he got the monkey off his back, but I think that like right now, I think the priority is to try and steer into a lane where you can get like a solid like third line centerman. And I do see like the Leafs and Florida like battling each other for that first spot, but the Leafs like they have the pieces, but they need a center right now. Like the back end is like very improved compared to last season as far as like allowing shots in front of the slot in the NHL, and just being like defensive, like and protecting like leads and protecting their goalie. Like they're like one of the best defensive teams in the NHL right now. You know what I'm saying? And even though they got their butts kicked against Florida, that was kind of supposed to happen because during that game, the team was like depleted. Like Pacioretty's injured, Domi's injured, Matthews was injured, Nyes got knocked out by White Cloud, Reeves is suspended, Jan Krok is injured, and Kampf is injured, right? So those guys are like key guys, you know what I'm saying? So Florida was supposed to win that game. So I mean, they're gonna battle because Florida looks good, but they don't. There's been times this season they don't look the greatest. Like, and remember, they lost a lot of key pieces last season going into this season, right? OEL, they lost the dude to Calgary. They lost Montour, they lost Stolars, who by the way, him and Wall, I believe, is like the most efficient but cheapest like goalie tandem right now in the NHL that's tearing it up. So like, I mean, like, yeah, it's gonna be a battle. Both teams are very good and built for the playoffs, but the Leafs need a third line center, and I don't honestly know what they're gonna do with Robertson moving forward. Like, I mean, you can keep him in the lineup and hope that he goes on a tear, but then you got to look at the what if he doesn't? Like, are you gonna give like Robenkin like more ice time? Are you gonna give Minton more ice time? Right? Things like that. So it's gonna be a tough battle. Like you said it right. Like you're not winning a cup right now at this point in the season, but the battle for first place, like in our division, is gonna be a dogfight. You're gonna see the Leafs in first. You're gonna see the floor. You're gonna see the Panthers in second, and it's gonna flip multiple times before the end of the season. I think the Leafs with Berube will actually win the division. So I'm gonna go on the record and say that the Leafs finish first over the Panthers because of Berube and last night's game against Tampa, although Kucherov wasn't in the lineup, was probably like the best like structured hockey game I've seen these guys play all season. I'm talking about like and Rick Bowness, shout out to Rick Bowness because he actually broke it down properly, like as per the structure that Berube had them playing on the panel on Sportsnet. Like that was like one of the panels that I normally don't watch, but just to see Rick Bowness like there and break it down like that, just I was engaged. So that was something right that they did there during like the hockey game and that panel during the intermission. And just to see like how the forwards were putting pressure on the puck carriers for Tampa and forcing them to make quick decisions with the pucks that turned into like turnovers and odd man rushes. Like just to see that type of structure, like it showed me that these guys have bought into the Berube system and they believe in Berube, and that's something as a fan that I haven't seen in a long time, where the players have actually bought into the coach and bought into the system and the structure. So it does look positive, but like I said, just add a center at the deadline, maybe like Ryan O'Reilly, somebody of that magnitude that has been there, that has familiarity with Berube in that sense. That's one before that could help us like down the middle. Like Tavares is playing some good puck as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like he scored a goal off the backhand last night. He looked strong. The power of the omelet. Yeah, like and he's playing like chippy. Like he's very like he's being physical. He's getting in the scrums. He's getting involved. Like you could see that he wants it. So yeah, just add a center, and I think we'll be all right. Like I kind of like the direction, the trajectory of the Maple Leafs right now.
This really does significantly beg the question, though, because like obviously the usual suspects in the Atlantic right now are currently, well, three of the top four teams right now all have basically either won Stanley Cups or within the last 15 years, or essentially has been to the Cup final. And it's like with say Boston and Tampa Bay like not too far behind, and of course Buffalo trying to, I guess, break the mold in that situation. It's like it does make for a very interesting situation in the Atlantic, but can Buffalo actually overtake a Tampa Bay or a Boston at this point? Just while we're still talking about the subject here. I don't know if anybody can hear me in regards to that, but
All right, I can hear you. I don't think Buffalo's doing nothing. I'm not worried about the Buffalo Sabres, the Montreal Canadiens. I
no,
am
we know
worried about
Montreal's dead last. I mean, like Buffalo was a different story.
the Senators are going to Senator. They're going to stay comfortably in their losing lane for a little bit. But yes, I think it's going to be Leafs, Panthers, um, and whoever else wants to position themselves for third. Most times around this year, you already know who's where, just because for the longest time it's been the Bruins on top, right? So now that things have changed a little bit, it's still pretty much anybody's division, but I think much like Jason said, it's going to be the Leafs and Panthers duking it out right to the end. And I will give the edge to the Leafs, um, just because why not? Or
Mhm.
Florida.
No, I fully agree with that.
Yeah,
Very.
Buffalo's not doing anything like to do anything. Like I'd be more worried about Washington. I think Avery said that Washington has he picked Washington. Correct me if I'm wrong, Avery, but you were saying like you think that Washington will be able to sneak into the playoffs. Like Washington is playing some good hockey right now. I think you said that on like the pre-show that we did for the season and stuff, right? And Washington is there. Like Washington has a better chance than Montreal, Ottawa. I thought Ottawa was going to do damage, but that blew up in my face. Allmark has a GPA of like a save percentage of like 8 point something, bro, like 8.67 or something like that. Like he doesn't, he had, there's been games where he's looked good, but most of the games he's been bad, bro. Like, so yeah, Ottawa is like, yeah, Buffalo, no. Washington, yeah, Washington looks really good. But Tampa is aging too. Like they're not the same pesky Tampa Bay team that they once were at a time where they dominated that division and killed everything in their path, bro. So I think like, yeah, it's Leafs and Panthers and it's gonna be a dogfight, and I think the Leafs come out on top. Real thing.
Yeah, and no one in that division is really wowing me beyond the Panthers in Toronto. Like you guys pointed out, there's a lot of aging teams in that division. Boston's had their struggles. Tampa is not that impressive. Buffalo is very meh. The Red Wings, I don't know what Detroit's doing. The Yzer plan to me is a very strange thing. It's been stuck in neutral drive since they hired Yzerman as GM.
No, I agree with that sentiment. Sorry, we continue.
Yeah, so yeah, and yeah, there's really you're right. There's only two teams that are really going to, I guess, do anything in that division. It's a bunch of maybes and teams that are delayed in their progress. Outside of those two teams and teams on the decline, I would be surprised if anybody else threatens Toronto or Florida in a division going forward.
No, I fully agree with that. Just to round it off, I agree with all of you completely. Um, Ideally speaking, though, like you can't really overlook, say, a young team like Buffalo because in that regard, like even with the strength of Tampa Bay, despite the fact that they've lost even like a great scorer in Steven Stamkos, and Boston, of course, has a very aging core. Um, you can't overlook, say, those two, and then of course like Buffalo as your sleeper. So ideally speaking, you really have to be completely careful of, I guess, underestimating your other opponents. This is a really long grind, and of course, nobody has it tougher than say anybody in like one of the toughest divisions in all of hockey, which would happen to be the Atlantic Division. Although the Pacific Division would probably have like to enter that conversation and be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" That said, I still feel that like Toronto should not be resting on their laurels right now, and they should be literally going for the throat in this situation and try and hold off Florida as much as possible. If they can try and keep themselves afloat, say going into the quote unquote All Star break in February, then I feel like Toronto might be able to just hold on and win the division completely. But if they flip flop with Florida, it's going to be very interesting within the last 3-4 months of the season. So we are going to keep an eye on that. We're also going to make sure that we obviously root for our favorite hockey team, our favorite miserable hockey team. But you know what? We also got another hockey team to cheer for in Toronto, which is something refreshing. And I believe that's a great segue into our next topic. The PWHL, of course, kicked off its second season as of Saturday. And ideally speaking, I've never seen so much fanfare for women's sport since the WNBA season as of like a couple of years ago, when people were actually genuinely excited to watch it. Well, of course, with the Brittany Griner release and everything, then of course this year with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and now of course with the PW finally having team names and everything. Um, I've never actually been more excited to actually be in the building during a women's game. Or sorry, a women's hockey game, excuse me. Uh, Back at Coca-Cola Coliseum on Saturday, the entire building was absolutely packed, and I mean absolutely packed. And it kind of put if you're a Marlies fan, it kind of puts them to shame at that point, especially if you have season seats for the Marlies and you have and also have season seats for the Senators. And it's just like this is going to be a continuous thing, so much to the point that like you might actually have to have games at Scotiabank Arena for the Senators at this point. That said, there were two matches on Saturday. Toronto defeating Boston 3-1. Of course, Toronto didn't end up getting the first goal, but they got the last three, which was extremely important. Montreal defeated Ottawa 4-3, and I believe there was another game. There was another game today, earlier today. Minnesota and New York. Correct me if I'm wrong, Avery. If anybody can hear me.
Yep, 1 sec, Dave. 1 sec here.
All right.
Sorry, what question? I was trying to calm one of my children down.
It's okay. No, I was saying that like Toronto had defeated Boston 3-1.
Yeah.
Montreal defeated Ottawa 4-3, and I believe there was a game earlier on Sunday.
Yes, and New York beat Minnesota 4-3.
All right, perfect. Of course, Sarah Nurse got a shorty as well. Daryl Watts ended up getting 2 points for the win, getting 2 points in that Toronto win back on Saturday, and the atmosphere was just absolutely bonkers in Coca-Cola Coliseum on Saturday. Jason, you were at that game, weren't you?
No, I wasn't at that game.
Hmm.
I thought you said you were working it.
I was working that game, yes. It was completely crazy, but I wasn't able to see all of it considering I was serving bear food the entire night. So
Yeah. No, but I seen the Sarah Nurse shorty. That I think that was the first jailbreak of the season, no?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, man, and it was a beautiful shorty too. Like, yo, these women can play, bro. Like, don't underestimate these women. They just need a bigger stage to play on. Like, I'm glad that it's growing and girl power is taking over like the sport of professional hockey. And you want to see it continue to grow, add more teams, get the ladies on bigger ice surfaces. The crowds are gonna start like selling out more and more and more. And you got to look at the inspiration for the little girls that want to play hockey on a professional level now. They have heroes to look up to, like, Poulin, Sarah Nurse, Kessels. Like they have so many, like these little girls have heroes to look up to. So just to see these women play the game at this pace and this speed, like and it's physical. I've always said women's hockey is physical, but like, yo, I seen a clip like from the Toronto game, and like, yo, bro, like these women are very physical. Like, yo, bro, like I don't want no part of that, bro. No, thank you. I'll just watch on TV. I don't want no part of that. No, sir. No, I don't want to go in the corner for no puck battle. I don't want to. No, thank you. No, thank you. These women are playing like they're just, putting everything they have into it, man. And it's just making the sport grow. And it's such a good feeling right now for women's hockey. And I think this season's going to be really lit. Like, you don't know who's going to win. And you don't know, like, what team is going to excel versus, like, what team is going to be able to make a push and play when it matters the most type. Because, like, it's just, like, so up and down. Like that Toronto game, like from what I seen in the highlights, like it was a roller coaster. Like they conceded the first goal, but then Sarah Nurse came and scored a shorty, and they got two more after that. So it's like, yeah, man, this season's gonna be great, man. What are your
And
guys'
also,
thoughts?
I was gonna say, after a tough first season for New York, the New York Sirens had a fun game, winning overtime, and someone who I've been a big fan of for a while, Alex Carpenter, 3-point night for her, had the overtime winner. She was a bright spot in a lot of ways for New York last season, and she's doing it again for the Sirens. That's a team for me to watch in my mind in the league this year is New York.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Poulan get a game winner too?
Shootout winner against Ottawa. She had the shootout winner.
There you go. There you go. The women are balling, bro. And these are names like on international levels that we're familiar with, right? Now they have their own league and they're able to take their own player identity and lead a team to try and win a cup. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I love it. So Avery likes New York. I'm gonna stick with Toronto, but I'm pretty sure Boston and Minnesota are gonna make a push too. Like this season's gonna be lit.
No, I fully agree with that. Also correct me if I'm wrong, but like they also introduced a new rule for power play, right? It's called the no escape rule, where it's like basically if the line that basically drew no the line that basically got the penalty, they can't leave the ice once power play starts, right?
That's correct. Yes. It's another penalty on top of taking a penalty. It's to increase scoring on a player advantage, and that's getting mixed reviews. Getting mixed reviews in terms of what it might do to a team's penalty kill if they can change. But I don't mind it. I'm seeing a lot of mixed reviews on the no escape rule.
So like, what are you seeing in particular though? Like say what like do you have like any insights on any of these comments so far?
I'm seeing a lot. Some analysts have said that a team is going to be too tired now. It's basically I'm seeing teams say it's going to hamper a team's penalty kill even more so if they can't change. But I don't see the problem with that. Is that hey, if you take a penalty, you shouldn't get a level of reprieve if you do take a penalty. So I don't see an issue with that. There should be a real punishment for taking an infraction in the play before. You shouldn't be allowed to immediately put on fresh skaters if you do take a penalty. I like that.
I
Marshall,
think
Sorry,
oh, go ahead. Go
I'm,
ahead.
I'm confused. So they can't change during the entirety
No, no, no.
of this penalty, or just
Immediately afterwards. Like say
so
like
like once the puck drop, if they can go change, right?
they can, yes, but they can't. But like say during that stoppage and play before during the penalty, they can change skaters.
Okay, so it's like an icing.
Exactly. Yeah. Because in any of the league, you can change your skaters after the infraction. In the PWHL, you take the penalty. That penalty kill unit has to stay out to take the face off. So they're trapped.
Nah,
They're trapped in a sense.
I think that rule works better if you have them stay out for the whole thing instead of just the face off. I think it might suck, but I mean, I think it works better if you do it that way. Because then it's going to make her really think twice about having to take a penalty.
yeah, but then they're gonna be so gassed, bro. You're killing a penalty for 2 minutes and you can't change, bro.
Yeah.
That's crucial. That's
Yeah.
But
crucial,
also,
I
bro.
that's
couldn't
how
see
you
him doing
get hurt people.
Yeah.
That's crucial, Troy. You're a madman, bro. You're a savage. Yo, you create a penalty. You got to stay on the ice for the entire PK.
Yo,
That would be
that'd be a really twisted rule to be honest with you. It's like, oh, your team costed no, your team got too many men on the ice. It's like, yo, y'all are too tired. I don't give a shit. You're staying on the ice. It's like, okay, cool. Let me just run through the penalty kill one time. It's like, oh wait, this was penalty killing unit anyway. So we're gonna fucking run through it anyway. But I don't know, man. Like this rule seems a little quote unquote weird. But then again, I guess new rule changes do seem a little weird when you're introducing them for like the first time. Like obviously it's gonna take some time to grow. The jailbreak rule does sound a lot of fun though. And it doesn't. I feel like it might need to actually be like implemented into the NHL itself.
Yeah. And Marshall, what would be your thoughts on the first week of the P Dubs so far?
It's very exciting and it's very colorful. Can't go wrong. I mean, I think one thing I wanted to add about what y'all were saying earlier is like access is a huge thing. So it's great to see that arenas are being filled in these first couple games, but it's also awesome to see that these games are being broadcast on television.
Mm.
People seeing it on television see how cool this is. They have another way to get there if they don't live in the cities that have teams. It shows interest to cities that might have those people. They see where people are watching. Those are potential cities that might want to be part of expansion of the PW. It opens horizons to so many different things, and we saw this when it first started back in January. 2.9 million people, and one can only imagine how that can grow. It's a matter of just making it available. But then also like tickets to go to these games, if you are nearby or if you're in that same city, they're not expensive. So it's like win 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 like all around. And it's just great hockey to watch. And mentioning like the new rule changes, they're very very interesting. Definitely
Mhm.
have to see them being played out. Like they kind of make sense, but it's harder when you don't have a visualization of what it is.
Yeah.
Like the no escape, I kind of find it funny because it's like slight punishment. You have to work for your freedom in a way, in a weird twisted way. um
Yeah, I
but
think we all kind of know that flex in
yeah,
no
yeah.
racial.
But I am very intrigued to see how it's going to play out with each team. Like, what is everyone's interpretation? Because yes, a rule is a rule on paper, but everyone has their own thoughts and meanings to what goes behind it, right?
Mhm.
You made a good point, Marshall, too, about again we seeing how there's games on television. There's games in Canada on Sportsnet, TSN. Regionally, it's going to be games on Nessun out in the East Coast of the USA. Games going to be on YouTube in America, and I look at the TV production as well. The TV production is top tier on TSN on Sportsnet. You're using educated voices again in this league, like our friend Daniela Ponticelli on commentary, like Soria Tinker in the studio, like Andy Petrillo. You're using voices that know the women's game and are experts at everything about all six teams. Because I see a lot of times, especially when it comes to say the Women's World Hockey Championships or other women's games, you'll see networks try and force mainly NHL voices who don't know women's players or women's teams. And it looks awful when you're watching, say, for example, women's college hockey, or you're watching the rivalry series, and it's someone who clearly doesn't know about a player like a Sarah Nurse. They don't know about Sophie Jakes. They don't know about Emirates Mashmar. It looks so uneducated on the game.
Yeah, you're so right. And I feel like it also offers new opportunities for people to get themselves out there and show their dedication to this side of the sport. Because as you said, like when you have those people, like yes, they have the experience, but that experience is on the men's side of things. It's like a deer in headlights when they essentially force them to cross over. And it kind of devalues everything that these players have worked towards. And it does a disservice to them and to the sport as well, because what is the point? Why wouldn't you refuse? There are so many people who have worked tooth and nail to be able to ensure that women's hockey is what it is. It is reported for the truth, the excitement, everything that it has to offer. Let's do something new. Let's do something fresh, but let's give it the same type of value and attention that we do for the NHL, just with fresh faces, fresh voices.
Ideally speaking, right now, like I'm seeing it as this. There is so much more that can genuinely happen with PETA, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger at this point. Yeah. Anyways, were any of you folks able to catch any of the other PW games over the weekend?
No, I caught like highlights. I don't know if Avery or Marsha or Troy got to watch any action, but if you guys did, please share.
Yeah, I got to watch a little bit of Ottawa and Montreal, and I it's been fun watching Montreal Victoire in terms of what they do. Again, That's another one of the high-powered teams in the league. But I'm gonna definitely be paying attention to them as well as New York. My three favorite teams to watch so far have to be Toronto, New York, and Montreal going forward.
Okay, well, let me ask this: if we get another two teams next season in the P Dub, where would you guys like to see those two teams be? Like, you guys could pick anywhere. Like, what two cities do you think would fit the P Dub that would be able to make it grow and expand? Like, do you guys want to see a team like in Los Angeles? Do you guys want to see a team, maybe another team in Canada? Like, yeah, just share your thoughts on that.
It's funny you mentioned that question because Avery and I literally talked about this, I think, last week, didn't we?
We did mention that beforehand, yes.
Okay, so ideally speaking, like we do want to see teams in other cities. Of course, Western Canada does deserve its fair shake, but also at the same point in time, if you're going to go into Western expansion, um, like you have to genuinely look at an LA or at least a Dallas, Texas. But I'd say do your takeover tour there first before like you even look into having an expansion team out there because like you want to gauge interest in that first rather than just shoot first from the hip and then ask questions later type deal. So like ideally like with the whole takeover tour right now slated to reach Seattle and or sorry with sorry slated to reach Seattle and Denver, Colorado this year. And of course, Edmonton being the surprise ninth city for the PWHL tour. Ideally, like you want to establish teams in those cities first, and then when you're doing your takeover tour next year, before you go to Europe, like look at a Los Angeles, a Dallas, Texas, a Phoenix, Arizona, a Salt Lake City, Utah. Uh, excuse me, a Portland, Oregon, a Miami, Florida, at least, a Washington D.C., uh, or even like a Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or even Pittsburgh for that matter. Like you gotta look, you gotta look at other bigger hockey markets as well. I also feel like Calgary should at least have a fair shake at a women's game too, considering that I wasn't sure if it was a PHF team at one point, but I know, or like say a PWPHL, or no, sorry, PWPHA team in Calgary. But I know there was,
CWHL, they had Calgary, the Inferno.
yeah, and
Oh, CWHL, Dave. Yeah,
yeah,
the Calgary Inferno.
CWHQ. Um, and like obviously there was like some interest in women's hockey out there. So ideally, I feel like Calgary definitely deserves a shot too.
I
So.
think the thing about expansion,
Mhm.
that if this league wants to remain sustainable, they can't jump to the West right away. And if they do jump to
Agreed.
the West right away, it has to be 4 teams. because
Agreed.
because if you're saying like, okay, great, you have your Calgary, you have your Vancouver, what's travel going to look like? They don't really have a full-fledged travel deal right now. All the places you could drive between all teams in a reasonable amount of time. What's scheduling going to look like when you have people go out to play home game, like away games on the West Coast, but then you're going to have all of the other 6 teams going, 6 or 7 teams going back to back to back to back to back within the span of 2 weeks. That makes for tired players, makes for not as fun of a game. I feel like it has to be a fully fledged plan with the funds ready. Like people can't be paying for flights out of pocket, need some sort of sponsorship or private charter service.
Mhm.
And it has to make going on that side of the continent worth it. Because otherwise, what's the point? That's why I think that expansion should flow central first, and then we can continue working our way out there when you know for sure after doing um, the visiting games in the arenas that like yes for sure we have the fan base, for sure we have people who are ready to buy into this and build off of that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
where are you thinking, Marsha? Like when you say central, like where would you put them? Like, let's say they have the funds to allocate, and they say, okay, Marsha, we see how the P is going. Where do you want to put the next two teams? Where would you put them that would be beneficial for the current league to make the league
Mhm.
flow well?
I think based off of earlier this year, Pittsburgh and Detroit would be the best places to go because those games damn near sold out. And people want to be there. People want to have that fun in that space, and there's always been a love for women's hockey. In those places, it just seems like the most logical places to start.
That's I like Detroit. I like Pittsburgh too. What would you call the women's team from Pittsburgh? Being like a woman, being a black woman. What would you call the Pittsburgh team, or what kind of like team would you give them? So you remember, like with Pittsburgh, it's like black and yellow. The Steelers are black and yellow. The Pirates are basically black and yellow in Major League Baseball. The Penguins are black and yellow as well. So what what would you name them, and what would the team be?
As like cheesy as it would sound, I would do something like bee related or like wasp because like that black and yellow vibe. So like if you want to go edgy, go like wasp, but if you want to be cutesy, honeybee.
The honeybees and the P Dub. So
You
we have the
know,
Scepters and the honeybee. Hey, Marshall, you
No,
got
no,
it,
no, no, no,
buddy.
no, no.
You
Here's
gotta
a better
copyright
coming
that
name.
now,
Better coming
Marshall.
name. I got a better
Marshall,
one
you
for you.
gotta copyright that, buddy. You better
No, no, no,
copyright
no, no,
that.
no, 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 no. Don't get
what
it
you
twisted.
got? What you got? What you got?
I got the Pittsburgh Stingers.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's Guanin too. That's Guanin too. You guys better copyright that. I'm leaning more towards the honeybees. You know what I'm saying? I know I'll get a fight on that because they'll say, "Oh, Jason, you're sexist. Why do we
Oh,
gotta be the
absolutely not.
honeybees?"
Yo, you
No,
can call them the
I like it.
bumblebees at that point though. But like,
I like it because it's black and yellow. Honeybees are hardworking. They try to like build the colony. The hockey team is the
Yeah.
same way, right? So like I'm feeling the honeybees still. The Stingers is dope, but
Build
I'm
the
feeling
hockey
the
community like they build the
yeah.
bridges with the steel, something like
Oh,
that.
bam, bam, bam.
bro, why do
Listen,
you think the
this her
Stingers
name.
sound so much better though? That's the thing. That's
Stingers.
like it's hardworking. It's aggressive. It's like it's like steel. It's like basically like the steel town itself of Pittsburgh. Like I feel like that would just genuinely work in that situation. You know what I mean? But then again, what do I know? I'm just a black man with an education, so as we all are. But
A lot.
This guy, yo,
and Marsha's a black woman with an education, but still. But anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder real quick. Marsha, what would you call the Detroit team still?
I immediately after I finished Pittsburgh, I'm like, okay, so now what's Detroit gonna be? But Detroit has to be music related. If
And
it's
this is
not
like
music
auto
related,
related.
I feel like that's like doing a disservice because I don't to my knowledge, I don't know of any like Detroit sports team that has any music references.
done.
Yeah.
You have the Red Wings, you have the Lions, the Pistons,
Yeah.
and the Tigers. Nothing music related, but when you think of Detroit, you think of Motown right away, right?
You also think of the
I
fact
get
that
what
like
you're
it's
saying.
Auto City too, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, like you can probably call them the Detroit Corvette.
So Detroit car, they'll be like, we're like,
I'm sorry. Would you like me to not?
yo,
I was gonna come in here with like groove,
the Detroit Groove.
you know,
But no, that one is
the engines.
the engines. Holy shit! Oh,
Oh my god!
Avery is in the parent role tonight. I love it
I have to be.
because Avery. Oh man, Avery's in the full parent mode tonight.
Oh my god! We're having way too much fun to do that.
What about you, Troy? You've been quiet for a minute, man. What do you think
Yeah.
if we go Toronto and Pittsburgh off of Marsha's lead, and then we'll
Detroit
go.
and Pittsburgh.
Sorry. Detroit and Pittsburgh off of Marsha's lead, and like the honeybees or the stingers for the Pittsburgh team, what would you call the Detroit team, Troy?
The Detroit team. I don't know. That's a good question. Um, you probably do something in regards to like the automotive industry. Um, you could find some sort something within the annals of history that ties into um, female success as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be an object, maybe a person, you know. Um, hmm.
The Detroit Rocketeers does sound appealing in that.
And for some reason, I'm thinking beer. Something beer related, maybe. I don't know. It just wasn't. I don't know. I can't because I don't know my history that well of these two cities to put forth like something that would make sense. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm just gonna go with the majority.
This guy took the
um,
easy way. You're taking the easy way out, Troy. The easy way out.
Oh boy. But like
Detroit is hard though, like because
it is.
it's hard. Detroit is harder than Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's already set. You know what I mean? Like based off of the color schemes of the teams that already play in that state, right? That city, right? So like Detroit would be difficult, like for to name like a women's hockey team club on a professional level, right?
What
That
about
separates them from the Red Wings, right? Because you want to make sure that you have that separation. Like even with like the Toronto Skeptors, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but yeah,
Scepter?
like with the Toronto team, the Skeptors has nothing to do with the Maple Leaf, right? So it just
Yeah.
goes to show you the names of the teams have nothing really to do like as far as the NHL clubs. The only one I'll say that's close is probably the Ottawa squad. You know what I mean? But other
Mhm.
than that, like you want to make sure you have that separation so that the women have their own identity as do the men in the NHL. You know what I'm saying?
Again, tying back to what Marsha initially stated earlier, you can go with the Detroit groove in that situation because like one it ties in with it not only ties in with Detroit's history with Motown, but also it does essentially tie in with Toronto or sorry Detroit's automotive history as well,
Mhm.
and it is something completely different. So I'd say you could potentially run with that.
True, true. The other thing I was gonna say was sound, because sound is like a nice neutral. But I like, as you said, Dave, I like how groove kind of has connotations to both,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it's different. Like you
Yeah, no,
said,
it is.
we'll
Father,
see.
Father Avery, what would you like to say in that situation? What would you like to say about these teams? Because like I know I've been out of pocket for like the entire I don't know 20 minutes
Are
since we've been talking about this.
Are we still doing Detroit and Pittsburgh? Because I have two different cities. Well, I'll say this: I have one. Marsha's a great point in terms of expansion. How we mentioned a lot too last week as well, Dave. That if you're going to expand the West, you got to do it in a chunk of teams. It can't be two. It's got to be four. It's got to be six. Going once to make an actual Western Division, Western Conference. So for
Hmm.
me, I'm gonna say for next year, I'm gonna keep Pittsburgh as a team for next year, but I'm gonna add Quebec City as my other team coming in. I'm gonna add Quebec City so we can get a battle of Quebec between the Victoire and the new Quebec team for next year.
Oh, that is
Here
sick.
for it.
I'm here.
That is sick, bro. Oh my gosh, bro. The man said Quebec. That yeah, that's a good one, Avery. Expand more on that.
Mm.
Yeah, because we already know Quebec is a hub for women's hockey, has been for decades upon decades upon decades. We've had players from national teams coming out of um, the youth sports programs in Quebec who've gone to the
Hmm.
national team. That's a hub for hockey in no matter what part of the province. So giving Quebec City their own team, we already know that Quebec City is starved for professional hockey again. You've got you've got the infrastructure there. I mean the Colisée is there. I mean not the Colisée, sorry. The Videotron Center is there to have a few games at least. If not every game, you have at least a few games at the Videotron Center in Quebec City. You've got NHL capacity marketing, you have some of the games there. You've got a fan base because you know no matter the league, people in Quebec City want to have their own team. Doesn't matter if it's the PW, the NHL. There's a split in that province between Quebec City and Montreal. They don't want to, in large part, they want their own thing when it comes to certain teams. So I could see them saying, okay, we have our own team. We don't have to cheer for Montreal anymore. We can cheer for our Quebec City franchise, which I think would be great to see.
Yeah, that would be fire, bro. I like that. I like that. I like that over the Detroit pick. Just because there's so much history there too, right? And then they could like bring back like the blue of the Quebec Nordiques, but then gear it to women. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that'd be sick, bro. I'm with that, Avery.
Well, obviously, it's a point of contention to see if there are other cities at play as well. I mean, if Edmonton or Vancouver essentially get the nod for, say, expansion, say hypothetically speaking, what would you call either of those teams? Because like for me, if you're gonna do something in Edmonton, you really got to tie it into the city's history. And of course, the Oilers are something that you can't really use, but you could probably use, like, say, the Edmonton Rockies in that situation.
Personally, I'll go back into hockey history in Edmonton. I would revive the Edmonton Chimos name. And you don't know who the Edmonton Chimos were. They were the most successful women's hockey team in the province. They won national championships, provincial championships. They were the premier women's hockey team in Edmonton from the 70s to the 2000s. So I would bring the Edmonton Chimos brand back for a PWHL team based in Edmonton.
I don't know. I feel like the Arrows might be a good name too. And then, of course, for Vancouver, you'd probably want to go with. You can't say the Lumberjills in that situation, but the Thunderbirds would also be a good name.
That's UBC's name.
No, I know it's UBC's name, but like you probably can't use that in that situation, right? So, like, you can't use Spitfires either because Windsor has that name in the Ontario Hockey League, right? So many things we have to think about in the situation.
What if you just give them the Millionaire's name and just let them create their own legacy as women under that?
You'd have to do the same thing for the Metropolitans as well, and you'd have to get permission from the NHL to do that.
I'm not really a fan of giving women's teams recycling men's names, women's teams. That's the thing. I'm not really a fan of that too much.
Yeah,
I kind of want the PW to like have its own lane and not be nowhere remotely close to the teams in the NHL as far as names. You know what I mean? Like, I want these women that are in the league playing for a team to have their own identity with that team. You know what I'm saying? Like, each team has a different identity from the teams in the NHL. Like, when you start like recycling names, it kind of takes away from like what I feel the league should be doing, which is building, growing, and just making a way for women to play hockey and embrace the sport and grow it, you know, for the little girls, right? Like, once, like, yeah, of course, like, we all know the NHL, but like, these girls should be able to get to know something besides the NHL that women are playing in on a professional level, right? Once you start like using like the older like recycled teams like in a women's league, like it takes away from that. I don't know if you guys get what I'm trying to say, right? But yeah, that's where my mindset's at right now. Like, let the women have their own identity. They don't need to like use old like men's team like that. That team that you brought up, Avery, the Edmonton Chimos, that would be perfect because that team has a legacy. It was the best like women's team that you said, right? In Edmonton, right? You bring that back, you're bringing back like a legacy that was already built by women. That's fine. But when you start using like legacies that were built by men and then putting it on the women, like, nah, let them build their own legacies or work with a legacy that was already built by women, right? Because we still want girl power to shine too.
As I was saying before I started dying, we're going to talk about the Four Nations face off just now. Of course, with the tournament rapidly approaching in February, all wow. You know what, Avery? I'm going to let you talk about
Take
this.
30 seconds, start that all over again.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice right now.
30 seconds, Marshall, you're being too nice. Man needs a
No.
minute and he needs to drink some water.
Trust me, Avery,
So,
you might want to start on this one.
All right, I'll jump in here as Dave's getting choked out by I don't know some aliens right now. But but yeah, so the Four Nations face off roster will be unveiled for the four teams: Canada, USA, Finland, Sweden on Wednesday. So we'll go around and we'll talk to the we'll ask the group here. I know I'll ask the group, but we'll start with Troy. What bubble names do you think make it or don't make it on these teams? It could be any name. It could be any name you feel is a bubble player on any of these four teams that you think makes it, doesn't make it. Who do you think? Who do you think is a player that doesn't get on or does get on, Troy?
I think Anthony Stolars makes Team America as the third stringer. I think with Team Canada. Oh, I hate it, but I think they're gonna pick Bennington. All of them aren't doing great at all. Like nobody's standing out right now. But I think they're just gonna go with Bennington just because he has a ring. Um, Other than that, I think it should be, pretty like the names that they suggested. I think these guys will all make the team, but I think all I'm thinking of right now is the goalies. We might end up with Eamon Hill, but yeah, I think that starting job is going to Bennington, and I think Stolars makes Team USA.
All right, so Bennington and Stolars for Troy. Marshall, what about you? Who's your bubble name to make one of these rosters here for the Four Nations?
This is a great question. Wow. I really, as much as I hate to agree with this, I agree with Troy on Bennington because, like, who else is it gonna be? Canada has been reduced to like 0.5 options. But it would be nice to see like some of the high key favorites, like the Sids, the Austins, the Wills. Even though they're like some might assume they're shoe-ins, like these people might surprise you because it's the NHL. So why would they do what everyone's expecting them to do? You know?
No, I hear you. Jason, what about you? Who's your bubble name to make it or miss one of these rosters? Who's your bubble guy, Jason?
I honestly, I see after last night and the way Chris Tanev played, I think he's making John Cooper like think. You know what I'm saying? Because just like going through the rosters right now, like for Canada and like what the other countries that are involved are projected to put out. I'm just gonna start with Canada, right? Like they have Brazil, Berdard, Crosby, Konechny, Lafreniere, McKinnon, Marchand, Marner, McDavid, Point, Reinhardt, Shifley, Stone. Then like forward wise, like Hyman, like you have other like guys that you could put there that could like create like a bump like for a guy like Berdard is like he's a generational talent, but like a Zach Hyman is just different. You know what I mean? So it depends on like how Cooper goes, but focusing on the back end, like like I could see Chris Tanev going in for a guy like John Morrissey. Although Morrissey's playing really well, you still have Devin Taves, right? So like I see Chris Tanev bumping out a Devin Taves or a John Morrissey, with like Petrangelo, Theodore, Hamilton. Bouchard is playing very well. Like he's definitely a guy on our back end for Canada that surprised me. But a bubble player for me that I could see going in is Tanev, and goalie wise, yeah, I agree with the masses. It's gonna be Binnington. I'd like to see Flurry in there for sure. I definitely like to see Flurry in there. Looking at Sweden and right now, like you have a couple of Swedes that are performing very well that could bump anybody out of the lineup there. Like, but I think a guy that would definitely be on the bubble there to make like the actual roster like finalized would be Nylander's brother, Alex Nylander, because he's been on that international level before, right? So he has a good chance of making that roster. For Finland, I haven't really looked at their roster yet, and the United States roster, that's gonna be like a bubble roster. Like as far as like we're gonna see like guys like Cooley and other guys who are taking steps in the right direction, maybe even getting a look, right? So for me, Canada, only focusing on Canada, I like on the bubble Chris Tanev on the back end. I like Zach Hyman as a forward on the bubble. And for goaltending, yeah, I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be Mr. Binnington because that guy, you know, he had that one run in St. Louis, but on an international level, he hasn't looked that good. But he's been playing well of late, if that makes sense. So I think they're gonna try and ride that hot streak.
All right. And I'll give mine here before I toss it to Dave Carlesimo after a choking
Dave
incident.
Carlesimo. Let's
Hey, you really want to die on this one, eh?
yo,
Yo,
that
set
came
me up
from
for that
nowhere.
one, Dave.
You
The
really
mic-
want to die on this one. That's craziness right now on all levels. Anyways, finish a blood clot that.
So my bubble name is someone who I honestly think needs more respect. It's a name that people like to drive through the mud because they don't watch his complete game and what he brings. But I'm gonna say my guy who makes it is Evan Bouchard. Evan Bouchard is third in scoring for Edmonton right now, has continued to get better as a blue liner, and yes, there have been some blips defensively where he's had issues, but overall, he's improved defensively, playing with Matthias Ekholm on the back end. He's got an offensive spark in his game, and I think in a week-long tournament, you're going to benefit adding M. Bouchard to Canada's roster. So I think the idea of him missing is ludicrous, and it's a lot of people who don't watch Edmonton games thoroughly enough to see what Bouchard brings to a roster.
Interesting.
Do you think Drew Doughty plays?
What's up? Was that Troy?
Do you think Drew Doughty plays?
No,
I don't think
No.
no. I don't see Doughty making it.
no, that injury he sustained with his leg, no. He already had one bad wheel before that injury. No, I would have loved to see Doughty there. That's the guy. For me, that's like him and Sid like are like he if Doughty was there, he would definitely be an alternate captain. Sid would have to be the captain. McDavid would be an alternate too, but Doughty would definitely be like the captains of the defensemen if he was there for sure. Where we definitely miss Drew Doughty on the back end. His grit, his skill, and on an international level, playing against teams like Sweden, Finland, and the United States, you need a Doughty there. Yeah, you have Makar, you have Dougie Hamilton, but imagine if you had Drew Doughty there. Like that we're gonna miss him. We're definitely gonna miss Drew Doughty for sure.
And Dave, who's your bubble roster player for make to one of these rosters here in the Four Nations tournament?
I'm gonna have to go with the consensus here. I really hate the fact that Bennington is actually even a considered name for Team Canada, but you know what? At this rate, there's only so much you can do and not recognize the fact that game recognize game in this situation. Even though Bennington is a little bitch, you can't deny the fact that he's playing very well. And you know what? Like it's one of those situations where it's like you kind of have to realize, like, you know what, he's been solid. He's been genuinely solid, and it's either a toss up between him or Marc-Andre Fleury right now. Fleury's playing lights out right now, considering that this may or may not be his final season, with in the NHL in particular. But you know what? You gotta give the flower some credit here. Like the man's not wilting, just like every other flower out there right now, especially in this type of weather. But you know what? Like, I'd much rather have a Marc-Andre Fleury like play for Team Canada, just to redeem himself after like that 2004 debacle at the World Juniors. But that's just me. Um,
He played in 2010 World. You had gold medals before, though. He redeemed himself a long time, but
no, I know, but still, like, I mean, it's kind of like this. It's like you have your gold medal, but like you want him to redeem himself one more time, just so it erases the sting of losing to Al Montoya and the fucking Americans from 2004. But that's just me. Um, Again, shout out to the World Juniors tournament that's coming up later this month. Beat the fucking Americans. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyways,
Yo, I just let me take a minute here to shout out Avery, Julian, and TikTok Omar. Still, I don't know if you guys seen it here on the panel, but these guys actually built like a Team West Indies, bro.
Yo, honestly,
Legit.
I wish I could have gotten into that conversation, because like I
Oh
heard
my gosh,
on Friday. That was absolutely beautiful, and it's like,
brother,
hearing
the team
like
looks tough too.
it
Like the
does,
team is
it
tough.
really does, and it's like if Anthony Duclair is healthy, like, yo, Bear Mans are getting boxed.
Yo, fam, like yo, bro. When I seen like the way they had the roster aligned and thing like that, I was just like, yo, that's Aki and Saltfish to their forehead, bro. One
Actually, yo,
time, bro.
before this episode
In
ends, like,
Ademanin.
you need to drop that roster on us, like, right on the airwaves before we end this. You think you can do that?
I was trying to find it, bro. Like the roster is pretty good, bro. Like it's a competitive roster. I think they had Byfield at first line center. They had Simmons on the fourth line. I can't remember the roster in its entirety, but I was looking at it. I was like, yo, the roster is tough, fam. The roster is tough.
yeah.
Like you
Avery,
guys,
please
like,
tell me you wrote it down.
I will. Oh yeah, and here Omar. I have Omar's tweet, so I'll go through it very quickly here.
All right,
First
sweet.
line, Anthony Duclair, Quentin Byfield, Akil
I was
Thomas.
gonna say, save it for the end of the episode. I haven't even finished my thoughts yet.
All right. Well, all right. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
I appreciate you still. Don't get it twisted. I want to hear it, but like, yo, let's
All right,
finish
go
the
ahead.
topic at hand first. You know what I mean? Anyways, damn. Nah, Avery, it's all love one time, but
All
say
right, go finish your thought. Finish your thought.
say on the bubble for Team Canada, like defensively speaking, either say I go with Avery's pick, Evan Bouchard, or I'd even go with a Morgan Riley, because, like, you know what, Morgan Riley is more of an offensive defenseman, or like say more of your two-way defenseman, and like you could literally use him as, like, say, a solid scoring piece on like, say, a very very rigid Canadian defense core. So I mean, you could probably throw him in there, and then of course on the forward line, you can also put like a Zach Hyman, or even give Connor Bedard like his first taste at international duty within the NHL. So, like, I mean, those are my picks there. Don't know too much about the American roster, the Swedish roster, and the Finnish roster, but ideally speaking, these lineups are set to finalize as of Wednesday. Am I correct in saying that right now?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, so obviously we're going to get a full picture as to who may potentially get onto the roster. Of course, I know Sebastian Aho is probably looking for a spot on Team Finland. And like I'd be really hard pressed to figure out why he's not on the roster. So ideally speaking, it's like it's his to essentially lose. Um, of course, Rasmus Sandin should also potentially get a look as well, for Team Sweden. Victor Hedman should also get a look as well. Gustav Forsling should also take a good look as well. And your goaltending lineup is set for Sweden with Ullmark, let me rephrase that. Allmark, Markstrom, and Gustafsson. But of course, we don't know too much about the American roster as it is. So, ideally speaking, it it's a mixed bag of things. Like I can pretty much see Austin Matthews literally making the American roster with ease, especially after the fact that he's just coming back from injury. So like I mean, it's his spot to essentially lose at this point. The Kachuk brothers, maybe you can throw them in that roster as well. But other than that, I mean, like what? Maybe even Jonathan Quick. Maybe give him one last hurrah before he finishes his career. Um, Again, like I said, don't know too much about the American roster as a whole right now, but we'll see the final product come Wednesday.
Well, I'll jump in for a second here. The American goaltending is scary. You got Hellebuck
Yeah.
and Swayman on the same roster.
Oh
Yeah,
shit.
that's insane. That's insane. And
American
then
goaltending is deadly.
yeah, it's deadly. And then
And
you
Ottinger
have
as well too.
yeah, Ottinger. Ottinger from Dallas. Yeah, and then you
I
have
thought Ottinger was Canadian.
He's American.
no, he American.
That's
But
crazy.
and then you have the potential of a Matthew Tkachuk, Austin Matthews, Brady Tkachuk line. That's just insane to think about. Like that line is just three pests. You have a sniper and then you have like two pests on the top. That's crazy. Like
No, it's not a sniper in two-way suits.
the US I wouldn't say that still I always go against them when they're playing the Leafs, but like on an international level, like that's like top end talent, bro. Like that's scary to think about. And then the
Mhm.
goaltending, like what Avery said, and that's not even including like the back end. Like you have Hughes, who's like a Norris Trophy candidate, McAvoy, Fox, Brock Faber, Rensky, Slavin. Then you still have John Carlson, and then you have Hannafin as well. Like that's scary to look at, bro. But Dave, I do like the Morgan Riley pick still too as a bubble guy because I feel he's playing a lot. He's playing better. But then if you're gonna let Riley play like on the bubble for Canada, then you got to look at OEL too, who's playing phenomenal hockey right now too. So this tournament is gonna be fun to watch. I'm actually excited to see how this tournament like plays out. Like obviously, I'm gonna say I want Canada to win, but that's gonna be a very difficult task with these nations and the way these rosters are gonna be stacked.
No, I fully agree. And of course, folks, the Four Nations face off will commence as of mid-February. Let me just pull up the date for y'all real quick before we decide to go off to our final topic for the evening. And then of course talk about Team West Indies before we finish the episode tonight. The Four Nations face off does commence as of February 12th and will finish as of the 20th of February. So good eight solid days worth of hockey. Hopefully speaking, Team Canada takes it and shows once and for all that hockey is a Canadian sport and primarily a Canadian sport. All right, moving on. A little bit of a funny tidbit that we encountered over the weekend. So turns out that one of the Canadian players that was initially considered for the roster, homeboy does not have his passport. So Joey Decord can't apparently play for Team Canada as he doesn't have a Canadian passport. He is a citizen of three different countries, which would be Canada, Switzerland, and the United States. But even though this isn't a double IHF sanctioned tournament, you're not going to let the man play just because of the fact that he doesn't have a Canadian passport. If this man has a Canadian birth certificate, then like why not just let him play in the first place?
He's born U.S. He's American born.
Okay,
But
so if he has an American birth certificate, then like I understand. But like if homeboy's defecting to Canada, then like Tutu's like let him play, let him fucking play.
I think they have like a strict policy and rule on that though. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta like follow the protocols and the rules and the regulations and stuff.
Mhm.
And I think it does require like a Canadian passport and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So even though like he may be Canadian but American born, you would still have to have that documentation in order to be eligible, right? I get your point. Like that's an easy fix, but I guess they have rules and regulations. But yeah, the court would have been he would have put pressure on our goaltending as well too with Fleury still, to tell you the honest truth, because he's playing good too.
It
is,
and I think
Go ahead, Mark.
sorry, I was just gonna add. I think the passport stipulation is because he doesn't have anything else proving his citizenship other than the fact that his parents are Canadian. So like you need that thing. You need to be able to, when you're traveling, say this is my official thing that says I'm Canadian, because right now it's just thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayer.
See, that would make sense if it is an actual border thing. That would make sense, like March is saying. But if it's because if the NHL was saying no, you couldn't because on principle, considering it's not a WHL sanctioned tournament, that would be silly. But if it's a border thing, that would make more sense. But it is funny because Isaac Phillips on the Blackhawks plays for Team Jamaica, but he's not Jamaican. He plays in he played in on non-WHL tournaments for Jamaica, but his background is Saint Vincent. Saint Vincent man from Toronto, from Ontario. But yeah, it has to be some border loophole preventing him from doing that because this tournament is a totally made up thing that is not sanctioned by any governing bodies internationally. So you could get around that, but it must be a border thing. And maybe I'll try to contact somebody in the league about that to get further clarification. Because Elliot Friedman was the one who broke that story on the court that'll be eligible for Canada. Because if it is a border thing that prevents him from playing for Canada due to lack of passport, okay, I get that. If it's not a border thing and the NHL trying to uphold a principle thing, then that is dumb.
Avery, it's the NHL trying to uphold the principle thing. You know this already, bro. Did you see?
We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure.
I know. We don't. It's not confirmed, set in stone. But
yeah,
okay. I'll word it different. I think that it's an NHL thing. This is not the opinion of the Third Intermission podcast. This is the opinion of Jason. Yeah, I think it's an NHL thing. Me personally. Because at the end of the day, like, I think he should be able to play, but it's just weird. I get what, the whole, like, okay, like, you need the passport to show that you're a Canadian citizen. We can't just go after your parents. But, I mean, the NHL obviously knows he plays in the league. He had to submit certain documents to be able to be eligible to play in the league. You know what I mean? When he was going in juniors and going through the channels to get to the league. So it's not like they don't have this documentation on file. They have it on file. They know who his parents are and where they reside. You know what I mean? So like it's an easy fix is what I'm trying to say. And I think they should fix it. If they care about the sport, they should fix it and maybe let him play as opposed to not letting him play or making him ineligible. They should reverse their decision and allow him to be eligible. But who knows?
But granted, now if you're on Canada going forward, you at least know about his eligibility. So you could say, and I said on a different podcast coming out this week that I would pitch it to him for 2026 and say, hey, maybe you can't play this time, but I would pitch him to this way in terms of, hey, Team USA's goaltending is so jacked up with Hellebuck, Ottinger, Swayman, and you might not make Team USA, but there's a gap in goaltending in Canada. So your best chance to be an Olympian in 2 years is to come for Canada and get your passport sorted out by 2026.
This is the sales pitch that Hockey Canada needs to present to the court because our goaltending is not the greatest. If I'm keeping it like 100, like when our goaltending has not been the greatest. The last international tournament we played in, Binnington was our goalie and we got hammered, bro. We lost to Switzerland. Switzerland had a pretty good roster. Timo Meyer, a bunch of guys loaded. But there's no way we should have lost that game, bro. You know what I'm saying? And it was our goal.
Switzerland always has a deadly roster. Like
it was a deadly roster, but I just felt that last tournament, like Tavares and Pierre-Luc Dubois, they played with chemistry. Like they were playing really well. Like Pierre-Luc Dubois wasn't playing like a greaseball, like the way he ended Muzzin's career. Like he was actually like playing hockey, like, but he actually cared and he was actually working and he didn't quit on no shifts, right? And I just thought like our roster top to bottom was like very well structured. But our weakest point, our back end was solid, but I think our weakest point was our goaltending. And I'm with Avery. You got to pitch to the cord. Hockey Canada, they need to pitch to him. Hey, USA, like what Avery said, the goaltending is stacked for USA. Swayman is not going anywhere. Ottinger is not going anywhere. Hullybuck is not going anywhere. You know what I mean? The court is not really going to have a fit unless he does something extraordinary in the next 2 years. And based off of the way like Seattle is like projecting right now in the league, like they're not gonna be as much of a threat. You know what I mean? So like he could put up great numbers, but USA is still gonna stick to their big three. There's not gonna be room for him. So yeah, Hockey Canada does need to make a pitch to the court and say, hey man, there's a huge gap. Come play for us. Get your passport and let him become an Olympian that way.
You know what? I fully agree with that. And ideally speaking, um, it should be it should just be like a 1-2 thing where Joey can literally just go to Passport Canada, fill out his forms, and like pay expedited shipping and literally get it within 2 days. But like that's just me, and then you can just bypass the whole problem right then and there. But that doesn't work in this situation now, does it? Troy, we haven't heard anything from you yet. So what are your thoughts on this?
Just let the man play. Like, if this isn't those big international tournaments, just let him play, man. Just let it be. Make like the Beatles and just let it be. Like, I don't understand what all the huffle and puffle is about. I mean, like, unless he's an absolute game changer, just let the man play. No big deal. I don't understand all this big huff and puff.
All right, perfect. And then let's just finish this off on a good note here. Team West Indies. Avery, you have the roster, so please unveil what would a solid Team West Indies look like and who would be catching the first death odds in a Six Nation face-off.
Yeah, so in a perfect world one day, the Four Nations Face-Off, World Cup of Hockey, whatever you want to call this tournament, expands, and we get a Team West Indies made up of players with Indian heritage on a roster. And it was a fun exercise that Julian McKenzie and Omar did on our Spaces room a few days ago. Probably one of the more fun exercises when it comes to building up an actual roster, because the fact that no one's ever actually tried to do this before, I think is criminal. But we'll do it right now. Hang on 1 second. I just had the. There we go. Oh.
Bear with us, folks. He's just taking.
I was like, yo, we just had the roster here. This technology. This technology deciding that, you know what? Nah. We're not gonna cooperate with you right now, Avery.
Yeah, no, technology is like that. But I'm glad you, TikTok, Omar, and Julian McKenzie took the time out to do this, because I've been dying to see like a all West Indian roster for the longest time, bro. So yeah, let's get into this.
Yeah. So we agreed. Our co GMs are Kevin Weeks and PK Subban.
Yeah, there you go.
The coaching staff is head coach Joel Ward. Assistant coaches are Jason Payne and Chris Anthony Stewart on the bench.
Big up Jason Payne.
Now to the roster. We had first line Anthony Duclair, Quentin Byfield, Akil Thomas as our first line. Second line, we had P.O. Joseph, Jason Dickinson, and Josh Hosang. Yes. Third line, Gamel Smith, Giovanni Smith, Justin Bailey. And we brought a couple of guys out of retirement to play on our fourth line: Wayne Simmons, Devontae Smith-Pelly, and Pierre Belmare. That's our fourth line. We have on the back end, we had Dakota Joseph and Darnell Nurse, Daniel Walcott, Jalen Chatfield, Jordan Subban, and Jalen Smerrick as our third pairing. And then we had Chris Gibson, Malcolm Subban, and Anson Thornton as our three goaltenders.
Yo, our back end is nasty, and our fourth line would destroy. Yo, that's Team Akia and Sawfish. That is Team Palau. That is Team Dashin and Banana in Ayafias.
I feel a rice on teeth and North Gravity.
In Ayafias. That fourth
Who
line,
else
then,
would you
bro.
dash on that roster, though?
What's up?
Pardon me?
Who else would you dash on that roster, though?
That's a great question. In terms of we were trying to think who else could have been eligible for that roster. That was an exercise we were trying to figure out for quite some time. I think this might be. We mentioned we had suggested Isaiah George. We had suggested Isaiah George and Islanders. He was thrown in there as a name, along with a few other guys we mentioned in the CHL. We suggested to be on the roster. I'm pretty sure we did bring up Isaac Phillips as well too. Isaac Phillips is a possible name.
What about the homie that we initially interviewed last year, Teos Jordan, right?
Oh, Taz Jordan. Yeah, I think he's about. I think he would. You get a camp invite. I think
Yeah.
he would get a camp invite to Team West Indies if this was a real.
Man said camp invite. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but this is the conversations like these. Like, a lot of people don't understand the power of words and conversation. Conversations like these lead to the discussion of building things like Team West Indies for the future, right? All of us have West Indian heritage in our blood. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
All of us love hockey, and I'm pretty sure all of us would want to see a West Indian team on an international level playing with a Team Canada, playing with a Team USA, so on and so forth. So these conversations are important to have, and I'm glad to be a part of this conversation that we're currently having right now, to tell you the honest truth.
Mm-hmm. And there's enough players who are West Indian who are now at the level where we have enough West Indian players who are coming up through the ranks in the NHL, in the AHL, in the CHL, in youth sports hockey, in European hockey. The hockey is, people always say, oh, there's not enough black people or West Indian people. They don't care about hockey. But no, when you go into these communities, when you actually do the work and dig in, you see West Indian people, black people, these cultures, these people of these backgrounds love the game.
No, fully agreed. I want to hear Marsha's take on this real quick.
Mean, what more is there to add? It's as we said, it's the people that you expect the least to be able to come out and do great things just because they've been given an opportunity to do so, right? If, for example, on a Team West Indies, you'll have, and I think we've mentioned this before, you'll have the people who don't normally make the Team Canadas, the Team USAs, find a new love and light for representing their heritage, but showcasing the world how good they are at what they do. And it kind of gives way to make these things more acceptable. And as was said, there are so many Black people that love hockey, but hockey is still predominantly seen as a white sport. So maybe we move away from those narratives because we see that it's okay to love and enjoy it because there's so many people who look like you within it, all in one place. It's little things like that that make me excited for the possibility of something like this, even if it is like just for fun, and not as part of like full tournament like caliber. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Lastly, Troy, I do want to hear your thoughts on this too. Team West Indies, what are we thinking here?
I like the construct of the roster. Um, there isn't any changes I would make. I think it's pretty solid up and down. Who would I add? I don't know. If I could add somebody, past or present, I would probably add George Larac just so he can have that physical presence, just to kind of scare people into giving us the puck.
This guy said George Larac. Yo, you just go there and beat people up, bro. I love it, Troy. I love it.
Honestly, I couldn't end that episode with a better statement at that point. So, all right, we're gonna cut this for the night, folks. Just want to say I just want to say thank you for letting us grace the space in between your head top. Of course, on behalf of Avery, Marsha, Jason, and Troy, this is your boy Dave signing off. You can catch us on the socials, and you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast from. We will be back next week. But until next time, as Jason would always say, drink your water and mind your business. And deuces.
Peace.
Thank you.